Welcome back, my dear friend. I'm Rose, and today, before we get into this reading, I want you to do something very simple. Take a moment and just listen. Because there's something unusual about this connection. You may already know they care. Maybe you've felt it in the way they look at you, the little things they remember, or those moments when their energy suddenly feels close. And then, almost without warning, they pull away again. And that's the part that doesn't make sense. If they feel this much, why do they keep their distance? There's a reason for it, and I don't feel it's as simple as they don't want you. In fact, the deeper I look into this energy, the more it feels like they're running from something they feel inside themselves, not running from you. There is love here, there is attachment here, there are feelings that have not disappeared, and yet there is distance. They may care about you deeply, but somehow they continue to hold themselves back. They may watch from afar, think about you privately, wonder what you are doing, and even miss you intensely, while still refusing to come closer. And the question is, why? Why would someone who feels so much deliberately create distance? Why would someone who clearly cares choose silence instead of connection? Why would they protect themselves from something their heart actually wants? That is exactly what we are going to uncover today. Take what resonates with you and gently leave the rest behind. The first thing I feel is that their distance is not necessarily coming from a lack of feelings. It is coming from emotional conflict. This person has feelings that they don't completely understand themselves. They may have expected this connection to remain casual or manageable, but you became important. And once you became important, everything changed. Your messages started affecting them differently. Your attention started meaning more. Your absence started becoming noticeable. And somewhere along the way, they realized something that scared them. They could actually lose you. That realization made them vulnerable. And vulnerability is exactly what they have been trying to avoid. This person may be someone who feels much more than they reveal. They can sit quietly and experience an entire emotional storm internally while appearing completely normal on the outside. You may look at them and think they don't care. But inside, they may be asking themselves questions they would never admit to you. Why am I thinking about them so much? Why do I miss them when I was the one who created distance? Why does their silence bother me? Why can't I simply move on? And there is something particularly interesting here. The more they try to control their feelings, the more those feelings seem to return. They may distract themselves. They may stay busy. They may spend time around other people. They may focus intensely on work, responsibilities, or their daily routine. But eventually, everything becomes quiet. And when the noise disappears, you come back into their thoughts. There may be a particular time of day when they think about you most, perhaps late at night, perhaps when they are alone, perhaps when something reminds them of a conversation you once had. And suddenly, the emotions they were trying to suppress return. This person may even revisit old conversations in their mind. They remember what you said. They remember what they said. And sometimes they wish they had responded differently. There is a feeling here of, I should have told them more. They may regret not being honest about the depth of their emotions. Because the truth is, they may have been afraid that if they admitted how much they cared, they would lose control of the situation. They didn't want you to know how much power your presence had over their heart, so instead of moving closer, they stepped back. And this is where things become complicated, because distance became their protection. When they are close to you, they feel everything. When they create distance, they feel like they can breathe again. But that relief doesn't last. Eventually they miss you, then they want to come closer, then they become afraid again. And the cycle repeats. This is why their behavior may have seemed inconsistent. One moment they seem interested, the next moment they become distant. One day they may give you warmth, the next day they disappear. One moment you feel like they are about to confess something. Then suddenly they close themselves off. It isn't necessarily because their feelings changed overnight. Their fear changed. Their emotions and their fear are constantly competing. And right now, fear may still be winning. There is also a strong feeling that this person doesn't believe they are completely ready for the kind of relationship you could have with them. They may look at you and see someone who deserves consistency, someone who deserves emotional maturity, someone who deserves to be chosen openly. And they may secretly question whether they can actually provide that. They may think, what if I disappoint them? What if I cannot give them what they need? What if I get close and hurt them? What if they see the parts of me I keep hidden? So instead of allowing you to discover their insecurities, they create distance. It becomes easier to say, I need space, than to say, I'm scared that I won't be enough for you. And I feel that sentence is important for this reading. Because you may have interpreted their distance as rejection, but emotionally, they may be experiencing it as self-protection. They are trying to control the situation before their emotions become too powerful. But here's what they don't realize. You cannot protect yourself from heartbreak by refusing to experience love. You can only postpone the emotions, and eventually those emotions demand to be felt. That may be happening to them now. The separation or distance has given them something they didn't have while you were close. Perspective. When you were available, they may have assumed they had time. They could delay the conversation. They could avoid defining the relationship. They could postpone making a decision. But when your energy changed, they suddenly realized that your availability wasn't guaranteed, and that realization may have shaken them. They may now be wondering whether you've moved on, whether someone else has caught your attention, whether you still think about them, whether the opportunity they had with you is slowly disappearing. And there is a little bit of jealousy or possessiveness around this energy too. Not necessarily something they would openly admit, but the thought of someone else receiving the love, attention, and emotional connection they once had access to may bother them deeply. They may wonder, what if someone else gives them everything I was too afraid to give? That thought can be extremely uncomfortable for someone who has been avoiding their feelings. Because suddenly, distance no longer feels safe. It feels like a risk. And this is where I feel a shift beginning. They may start realizing that keeping their distance has its own consequences. They can protect themselves from vulnerability, but they cannot protect themselves from missing you. They can avoid the conversation, but they cannot avoid their own thoughts. They can stay silent, but silence doesn't erase feelings, and eventually they may reach a point where they have to decide what they actually want. Now, my dear friend, I want you to be very careful with one thing. Don't allow this reading to make you wait around for someone indefinitely. Their feelings are their responsibility. Their fear is their responsibility. Their healing is their responsibility. You do not have to become their therapist, their rescuer, or their emotional safety net. If they love you, they need to eventually learn how to communicate that love, not simply feel it privately, not simply think about you at night, not simply watch from a distance. Love needs courage too, and that is the lesson this person may be learning, because you cannot build a real connection through hidden feelings alone. At some point, someone has to step forward. Someone has to say what they mean. Someone has to stop pretending that everything is fine. And I feel this person knows that. They may be slowly approaching that realization. If they reach out, it may not begin with a dramatic confession. It could be something incredibly simple, a casual message, a small question, a reaction, a memory, an excuse to start talking again. Don't focus only on the words. Pay attention to the intention behind the action. Are they becoming more consistent? Are they communicating more openly? Are they willing to acknowledge what happened? Are they actually making an effort? Because that is where you will find your answer. And while they are figuring themselves out, you have something much more important to do. Live your life. Don't put your happiness on pause. Don't constantly check your phone. Don't interpret every little sign as a promise. Don't shrink yourself so they feel comfortable. Continue becoming the person you are meant to be, because your energy is changing too. You are becoming less desperate for answers. You are becoming more comfortable with uncertainty. And you're beginning to realize that someone else's inability to express their emotions does not make you unlovable. In fact, it may simply mean they encountered a depth of connection they weren't prepared for. So why do they love you deeply but keep their distance? Because being close to you makes them feel vulnerable. Because you see through their defenses. Because they know this connection could become serious. Because they fear disappointing you. Because they are afraid of losing control. Because their past may have taught them to protect themselves instead of opening up. And perhaps most importantly, because loving you requires them to become emotionally honest with themselves first. And that is something they have been avoiding. But remember this, my dear friend, you don't have to force someone to become ready. You don't have to chase someone into vulnerability. You don't have to convince someone to recognize your value. Let them do their own inner work. If they truly want a place in your life, let them show you. And if they finally overcome their fear, you will be able to see the difference between someone who simply misses you and someone who is genuinely ready to love you. Until then, protect your peace. Keep your heart soft, but keep your standards strong. Because the right kind of love won't constantly make you wonder where you stand. It will give you clarity. It will give you consistency. It will give you peace. And if this person is truly meant to walk beside you, they will eventually understand that keeping their distance cannot protect them forever. At some point, they will have to choose between the safety of hiding and the courage of loving. I'm Rose, and I'm sending you so much love, light, and strength. Trust what you feel, but trust what you see even more. And remember, someone can love you deeply and still be afraid of loving you properly. That fear may explain their distance, but only their actions can show you whether they are finally ready to close it.